Welcome to Urania Universe. I'm Urania, and in this video, I will provide a brief overview of the astronomy and ritual of Samhain. This is video 7 of 8, in which I discuss the 8 significant points of the sun's annual journey from our perspective here on Earth. These 8 significant points also are known as the 8 Sabbats, which comprise the wheel of the year in the pagan tradition. And these 8 significant points in connecting with these specific times of year really enable us to connect even deeper with nature and the relationship of sun and earth's relationship. Firstly, I would like to discuss the astronomy of Samhain, or of this point of the year. And then I will go into the cultural and specific observances of this particular point of the sun's journey. And so Samhain is traditionally observed as the moment, the halfway point, or the peak of autumn, I should say, the peak of autumn. And so on a local experience, and primarily the Samhain observances and practices are stemming from the Northern Hemisphere's perspective of this time of year happening on October 31st, or at least being observed on the 31st of October. However, when we look at it from the context of astronomy, this is considered to be the cross quarter point between equinox and solstice. And so even looking at Earth as one whole being and looking at it, or finding that center point, the heart of Earth, and connecting and observing this cycle and relationship between Earth and sun from that center perspective of Earth, that cross quarter point is going to be the halfway point between 0 degrees Libra and 0 degrees of Capricorn, right? And these 0 degree points, the 0 degrees of Libra, is that Western point of when the sun shines directly over the celestial equator of 0 degrees Libra, which is on the western, like off the western horizon of the celestial equator. So that is the 0 degrees Libra. The 0 degrees of Capricorn is when the sun is shining directly over 0 degrees of the Tropic of Capricorn, that point in which that is the most southern point that the sun shines directly over that point of Earth. And so when the sun reaches this halfway point between this equinox and solstice, this cross quarter point is considered to be observed as Samhain or observed as Halloween. So in a global perspective, this does occur not on October 31st, but on November 7th. This is when the sun will reach 15 degrees of tropical Scorpio, right? And so we have that fixed Scorpio energy of that essence of the autumn period, right? The falling of the leaves, everything coming in on itself. There is the essence of death, right? The veil is thinning between life and death. And Samhain is also the third harvest of 3, right? The first one being Lammas, which is the cross quarter point before the equinox, before the 0 degree Libra or September equinox. And then you have the September equinox. And then this third harvest time is Samhain, which I'll talk a bit about here, right? And so this is essentially from the perspective of Earth as a whole. The sun is descending into this southern point, which is the Tropic of Capricorn, right? So it's descending, you could say, to the underworld, right? And so from a collective experience, we can still look at this overall experience of, okay, there is a focus on release and coming into the resting space, coming into what's underneath essentially, and connecting with that energy as a whole, right? And this is why it tends to work from an astrological point of view when you're looking at these elements within astrology, right? Within Scorpio, right? Because while Scorpio is the archetype of the energy of transformation, of like there's kind of a focus on the darkness and death and, what lies beneath and getting to the bottom of things and that passionate driving desire. You can really see that as a whole collective with the sun descending, right, and going down to the underworld, underneath the world, even though it doesn't go under earth per se, but just this whole perspective. So you can see how that flows. So Samhain, from the cultural perspective, is this time of year. The overall essence is that transition and transformation. And the traditional theme of Samhain is essentially honoring the dead. And the more modern way of connecting and observing Samhain, and we know it as Halloween at this point, is the sense of the spooky and the scary. And there's obviously also the element of the dead and still honoring the ancestors and those on the other side of the veil. And really, it's this whole connecting with what's unseen, whether that be taboos or just even connecting to the concept and experience of the supernatural, like the things that are unknown and that tend to hide in the dark are having an opportunity to be illuminated, right? And so this is where we're getting this experience of the veil is thinning, right? The veil is like the nights, at least here in the northern hemisphere, are moving into the darker periods, right? The nights are becoming longer and the actual daylight hours are becoming shorter. So darkness is essentially overtaking the light. And Samhain, it essentially is the last point, the last spoke in the wheel or on the wheel of the year, right? And so this is the end of the year and also the beginning of the year. And some tend to look at December solstice, or when the sun is shining directly over the Tropic of Capricorn, that 0 degree point. That is the beginning of the new year, once the sun begins to rise and ascend to the most northern point, which is going to be the Tropic of Cancer. So Samhain is Gaelic for the meaning of summer's end. And Samhain in itself has Welsh, German, and Irish origins. Samhain is considered to be an observation or celebration of peace, peace through fire, like finding that warmth, finding that light, finding that peaceful nature as we begin to move through this darker experience. And so there's really a focus on protection of the home and hearth, right? A focus on honoring the sun and the power of the sun and bringing that into the home. So how do we bring in the sun and the fire and the warmth in the home, right? And so the ancient Celts would honor this particular time of year with a fire festival. And this fire festival would sometimes occur, before or around the first full moon in October, or the only full moon in October. But this would indicate that frost coming through. So around that first full moon of October, shortly after that is when that first frost would come in. And I know I've been, for the past couple of years, I think, living in Colorado. So I lived in Colorado. I'm not in Colorado currently, but I did live there for about 10 years. And I noticed that around Halloween, like that we always got some snow, right? Whether it was like right before Halloween, on Halloween, or shortly after, but it was around that last week of October that we would get more snow. Even if it wouldn't snow again till, say, closer to December, there was always that snowfall. And I thought that was really interesting. And so reading in my studies and researching to see that that's actually something that was literally observed, right? And something that was anticipated, it really made sense. And I am originally from Maryland here in the United States. And so very rarely ever get snow. Definitely not in October. So I was like, whoa, what is this? And so the ancient Celts would really like bring into the summertime, right? The season of summer, with a fire festival. They would also bring in the herd animals. There would be offerings and also sacrifices of some of these animals, just to honor the spirit and fairy folk. And those offerings or sacrifices of the animals were for the gods, and also to kind of clear the space, right? Because this was a time, I would say, where less was more, right? And not a lot of these animals would make it, through the season, through, up until that coming of the sun again. And so this was really important for the for the animals basically to not enable suffering, right? So there would be a sacrifice, and that would be really expressed, or a sign of respect for the gods, right? And that respect was received and also given, right? There was blessings that came with that. So that's why animals were sacrificed and offerings were made to the gods at this time. So then moving to the Christian influence, which was around the 5th century, this this time of year started to merge into a celebration of honoring saints and martyrs. They initially wanted to, and this was one of the ways that the Catholic, the Roman Catholic Church wanted to basically convert the pagan folk to their practices and their way of living. They would merge the holidays, or kind of take on a bit of their pagan traditions, but then add their Christian influence within that. And so the way they did that with this time of year, because this was such a powerful time of year for pagan folk, they essentially turned this into a time to honor saints and martyrs. So you got All Saints Day and All Souls Day. The Catholic Church would use these times to pray for souls that were in purgatory and to pray for their resolution and the saving of their soul. Another important observance of this time of year, which is well known at this point in modern day, is Dia de los Muertos, and this is the Day of the Dead, and it is observed on November 1st. This is an ancient Aztec tradition with Catholic influence yet again. And it initially began as a celebration and observance of the Aztec goddess of death. Her name, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher this, but her name is Mictecacihuatl. Mictecacihuatl. All right, you'll see it here on the screen, the spelling, and a beautiful image of this Aztec goddess. And so on this day of celebration, the people, the Aztec people, and now I guess you could say in modern day, this is a day of celebration of offerings, food, music, dance, and an open invitation for ancestors to visit the home. And this is a time where, even though, it might tend to appear as a scary time, this is in actuality a very joyous and lighthearted time where you would see, people celebrate in ways of painting their faces, and they would even make these sugar skulls. And I heard that those are left at the cemeteries or grave sites of past loved ones, and they would also, share food or make food and have that on the altar space for the ancestors, what they really enjoyed, and just to welcome in that energy and that protection and open up that connection, that very clear channel to commune with the dead and with the loved ones that have passed on. At the end of the day, I do still have that strong sense and connection with modern Halloween, that the core is still the same, of honoring the dead, right? Communing with the dead as the veil is thin. And a lot of us, even if you are not someone who practices, say, witchcraft or any type of spiritual practice that involves communing with the realm of the dead, a lot of us tend to just be in this spooky type, vibe this year or during this time of year. And we tend to embrace the darkness, embrace, the dead and the ancestors. And so it's really hard to escape that experience. And that's why, you could argue that Halloween is usually a really fun time for people, but then there are other points of view where it possibly makes people uncomfortable again, because this time of year really connects with and brings to light like the supernatural, the unseen, the energies that we can feel and sense, but we can't really see with our physical eyes usually. And it's very tangible at this time of year, right? And so that is really something that I have enjoyed or always enjoyed about this time of year. Just everyone, it's like you can't ignore, the hiddenness of the world around you. And there's really this strong invitation to face one's fears at this time. So when you're observing this time of year, wherever your local experience is, this is within Samhain, this is the point in which you're looking at the trees and the leaves on the trees are beginning to turn colors or already have begun to turn colors. As I mentioned, this is the peak of autumn. And so they're probably in their peak ripeness of brightness, like of bright color, whether it be yellow, red, orange, purple, what have you. This is a time where you're seeing that transition is fully here for the most part. And now you're beginning to see those leaves fall to the ground. You're seeing the ripeness of the fruit. And again, this is the last harvest, right before, the major frost comes in. And so you're going to really see a lot of the fruit has fallen. Some of the fruit is, on the ground ripe and beginning to turn, right? And beginning to compost itself back into the earth. And you're beginning to see the pumpkin, the squash, the winter squash. So that's pumpkin, butternuts, acorn. You're seeing cauliflower come forth and broccoli and cabbage, right? And then the roses, the mums, the marigolds, did I say the roses? I meant the flowers, but yeah, roses in there too. And so colder temperatures, less light, you might see some gray skies if you're here in New York, which is like, this is the time, the darkness of November is what I like to refer to it, because this is the time where it's like, okay, where is the sun? It's always gray. And luckily on the day that I'm recording this, it is actually sunny outside. So I'm really happy. But this is when we start to really feel the energy of the fire and the lanterns and the power of that warmth. And this is the time of year where you really start to smell the fire and the wood burning. And that just brings in this cozy feeling, right? And so this is when the energy of the earth begins to come in closely to itself and getting intimate with itself, right? So the leaves and the fruits, and even the animals burrowing their way into the earth to find that warmth. It's like we're closing in to this comfort, warm space together as, we hibernate and really, reflect and do all the things in preparation for the sleeping period, the darkest moments, and then, begins the new cycle. So that is a beautiful way to witness and connect with nature during the time of Samhain. Finally, I would like to share on the ritual of Samhain. And this is going to be a bit of astrology and spiritual correspondences to this time of year and how you can personally connect with the energy of this sun-earth relationship. And so if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, this is also Halloween time. And so it is observed on October 31st. However, the astronomical point in which the sun reaches its halfway point between the September equinox and December solstice will be on November 7th. So we have this sweet little grace period between October 31st and November 7th. And so, maybe you're really busy around Halloween time. And now, you had that moment of, okay, I did the trick-or-treating with the kiddos, or, I went to all the parties and now I want to direct my energy in a more, spiritual, maybe meditative connection with nature and honor this time and really connect with the ancestors or just the energy of transition and transformation. this moment of November 7th is that time to do it. So you have kind of like a whole week between October 31st and November 7th. And November 7th that date may change from year to year. So again, you can always visit Solar Events Calculator to see what that day is exactly for you in your location. And it also gives you the time, which is awesome. And if you are in the Southern Hemisphere and you want to connect with this essence of Samhain in your local experience, that seasonal experience will be on the opposite end of the wheel for you. So it'll be around May 1st. And I believe the cross quarter point for that time period will be around May 7th, right? So again, you can visit the same website. And this is going to be the energy and the vibration, again, of connecting with ancestors, past loved ones, any energy or spirits that are on the other side of the veil. And it could be on the other side of the veil in the sense of, more the light side, right? And also another theme is, facing fears and connecting with the supernatural, or even bringing some taboos to light, right? For, just for fun, or just to really open yourself up to another experience within, that energy of it being from the darker aspects or the darker realm. During this time, the sun will reach 15 degrees of Scorpio. And so again, these Scorpio elements, these Scorpio qualities are really prevalent at this time. Scorpio is the archetype that is very passionate and desires to go deep, to penetrate beyond the surface, to see what lies beneath, right? And that journey and that experience within itself is what brings through transformation, right? So you're moving into unseen territory, right? And that movement is done through, you could say, the emotional attraction, the desires, your emotions move you, right? And so this connection to Scorpio, it's almost like the fear within itself, or that mystery of the unknown, is the driving force, the desire. And at a lot of times within our lives, it's like we do have these fears, we do have reservations, but I don't know what it is about this season. But all of that is, essentially, maybe it's like we can't hide anymore because the darkness is coming forth and it's very close, right? The unknown is very close. So we are invited to move beyond the veil and travel into places that are considered to be taboo or scary, or maybe our fears or our unconscious influences, and dig deep within that. So that's definitely a strong theme for Samhain. As I mentioned, there are themes of that ancestral connection. There are themes of ending. So this is the end of the year, in the sense of, as we get to the winter solstice, we're approaching the end of the year, the ending. So in preparation for that ending point, which is really December solstice, once the sun reaches that point, stand still and then begins to ascend further north back to its most northern point, which is the Tropic of Cancer. And so there is therefore this energy of preservation. How do we preserve our energy? How do we ration? How do we find the warmth within? How can we bring everything within ourselves to protect the home, whether it be our physical home or our body, right? Or our mental health, our emotional health and well-being at this time. So that is a strong focus. Correspondences, as far as the goddesses and gods for this time of year, the goddesses, you'll see Hecate, which Hecate is, thresholds is really actually a major theme and correspondent to Samhain, right? So again, this points to the thinning of the veil. What is the boundary? That boundary is very easy to penetrate, to move through. And again, we have that Scorpio reference. And so any deity that protects that boundary, those threshold protectors, I guess you could say, or guardians of the threshold. So I even see High Priestess in this way too. But with Hecate, she is the whole entire cycle within itself, the new beginning, the peak, and the ending, right? The waxing, the illumination, and the fullness and abundance, and the wane, right? That whole cycle within itself, that whole experience, which is very Scorpio. And so Hecate is one of those goddesses associated with Samhain. We also have Kali. Kali is the energy of death, right? She is the goddess of death and the void and darkness. I feel with Kali, Kali is the goddess of endings. In my own personal experience with Kali, whenever I'm really like, I want things done, like I'm just tired of it, like let it burn, let it crumble, I don't care. She definitely gives me Tower card energy, although you'll see her associated with the Death card in tarot. Kali is essentially that energy of severing being done, right? So again, it's almost like a threshold energy where there is this moment of happenings, this event, and in this event, Kali is the one to kind of cut and create that separation, right? So that threshold energy, and also the death experience and that experience of facing fears. And so Kali is a very strong goddess correspondent for this particular time of year. So the Aztec goddess that I probably butchered her name, I'm going to say it again, Mecteca Kiwatl. Yes, that goddess. She is, I really enjoyed reading about her briefly. And so that goddess is, she's a beautiful representation of this time of year and honoring death. And so the gods that came forth, Hades, king of the underworld, god of the underworld, that makes a lot of sense. And also Osiris. I saw Isis too, but I'm like, okay, Isis is coming up for everyone. And so is Osiris. I definitely want to present some Egyptian gods and goddesses through this journey. But Osiris is the whole journey of going through the underworld and becoming king of the underworld, or god of the underworld, is very fitting. And so I had to give Osiris this, attention. And so that's another god that you can work with for this time of year. Herbs that are in correspondence to Samhain are sage, cedar, mugwort, wormwood. My personal connection, I will say, with sage, it's interesting because, if you're starting out, you know, if you're starting out with any kind of spiritual practice or, witchcraft, there is, people will guide you to like, hey, light sage, to expel evil spirits, right? To cleanse your home. My experience with sage is it can help in the clearing process, but maybe not the way that people think. So when I feel like there's a spirit or an energy in my house, and I'm getting goosebumps, that's interesting. And I don't like, I know it's there, but I don't really sense it and I need it to come forth. I will light sage first. So I'll usually go around and light sage if I'm doing a whole house blessing. I light sage to bring out the unwanted energy, any energy in hiding. I use the sage for that. And then I will use a bell to kind of break up any stagnant energy as well. I'll use, blessed water, holy water, right? And I'll go around my house cleansing with that. And then I will also use sweetgrass. It's a whole thing, right? But I use sweetgrass as the final uplifting energy and sweeping of the negative energy out. Of course, you want the windows up. So it's a whole thing. But my point is, sage does not really banish them. It'll bring, I feel like these kind of energies, like you could say low vibrational energies, are attracted to sage. There's something like intense and pungent about sage. And with mugwort is really one of those that enhances the ability to move beyond the veil, to open up your vision and your psychic senses. So that's really amazing to connect with that. And of course, the animal correspondences for Samhain, we have the black cat, the ravens, spiders, owls. I don't really need to get in much detail about that. And most importantly, this is a really good time to honor the ancestors by creating an ancestor altar, or just adding something onto, your altar if you have one currently that represents your ancestors, or, the food that they would like, or perfume, or, flowers that they enjoyed. This is a good time to honor them in this way during Samhain. If you actually watch these videos in order, For the equinox, September equinox, I mentioned the gratitude box where you craft your own box and you cut up little pieces of paper and every day, write down what you're grateful for, any insights or synchronicities or just any wonderful things that have happened for you during that day or of that day. You write it down and put it in your box, either at the end of the day, beginning of the day, or whenever you feel, right? And so now here we are at Samhain, right? And this is the point, taking that box, right? You can, you can continue to write and drop some in. But the guidance with this, the book that I came across this in, says that this is the time when you reach the cross quarter point, as the nights are getting darker and darker, or the days are getting darker and darker, nights getting longer. This is a good time to begin to every day take one of those, pieces of paper out of the box and read them for inspiration, to uplift yourself, and just to have that moment of appreciation or inspiration, or just raising that vibrational frequency within you. And so you can do this until December solstice. One of the things I thought about is continuing to write in the box up until December solstice, and then December solstice, you then begin to take out the notes and reading them. So whatever feels good for you, right? But the idea is that as the days are darker and we're feeling that darkness within, we're facing a lot of like heaviness, right? As most of us are spending more time inside, you're reading these notes that you left yourself, these important moments or these little notes of gratitude, and that brings you some light and some joy into your life in that moment, in these darker periods of the year. So I would love to hear your experience. If you want to leave a comment about that below, on how, this works out for you, or how you enjoyed it, or maybe it like didn't really lift your mood much, but I'm sure it will lift your mood. One of the rituals, you could say, or crafts that I want to do for Samhain is the Samhain oil. I came across this in the Samhain book. It's a Llewellyn book, and I'll put the link to it in the description of the videos, because they have a series of books for each of these 8 significant Sabbats, right? Each of the 8 Sabbats, they have a specific book on them, and you can learn more and dig deeper. They give rituals, they give recipes, they give invocations. It's amazing. So one of the craft recipes that I am going to indulge in for Samhain and bless it and everything at this time, it is the Samhain oil, and it's simply, you can use olive oil or sunflower oil, calendula flowers, marigold flowers, and frankincense resin, right? And I'll put that all in the description below. So you add this all into a little bottle and, shake it up and everything, but let it infuse. And you set it aside. They say in a sunny window. So good luck with that. As I'm here in New York, I'm like, sunny window. Okay, maybe a grow light. I don't know. But I'll sit it in the window here, probably in this room, and let it infuse and, kind of sink in the energy. And then once you're ready, you can just use this oil, and, just to give you the properties of these different herbs. With olive oil, this is typically used as anointing oil to aid healing, protection, and fertility. The sunflower oil, if you choose to use that one, this is an oil that corresponds to wishes, joy, wisdom, good health, and vitality. It is known to heal emotional pain. So that's probably definitely a really good one for Samhain for sure. Calendula, one of my favorites. It really embodies the essence of confidence, of just vitality, brightness, uplifting energy. It's very soothing when you use it on the body as well. And so it gives strength also to spells and enchantments. So that's a really good one to have in there. And then finally, did I mention marigold before? I don't think I mentioned the marigold, but maybe I did. Marigold is something to add in this oil. And marigolds are good for protection, for psychic powers, prophetic dreams, and passion. Marigold tends to enhance communication and clears the channel to connect with the spirit realm, right? And so then finally, frankincense resin is really good for protection, uplifting, purification. It induces visions and aids in protection. It's really good for meditation, if I didn't mention that before. And so having all of these together infused in a little bottle is going to be just so special for Samhain. And all of these herbs correspond to the sun, right? They're all sun herbs, fire herbs, and with the case of resin, the plant ally that's associated with the sun. And so just having this oil blend and sitting it in a window for the sun to infuse and connect with will really, once you begin to use it, really help you to embody, or feel in the act of really taking in this essence of the sun and bringing forth the clarity and protection that is called forth during this time of year as we're in these darker moments and really a lot coming up emotionally and mentally. And it'll give us the support, and even connecting with the ancestors, right? To be in a space of high vibration and to receive the care, protection, and love of our ancestors and the guidance of the ancestors. And so thank you so much for watching this video. And if you haven't checked out the previous videos, please check them out. I would love to hear your comments and perspectives on everything I've shared in the comments below. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe if you enjoy my content and you resonate, and definitely please share this with someone you think would enjoy this content. I hope that you have a beautiful Samhain, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.